Welcome to our journey through the fascinating history of one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known, the Roman Empire. From its humble beginnings as a small city-state to its eventual dominance over vast territories, the Roman Empire left an indelible mark on the world, shaping the course of history for centuries to come. The Romans and their empire, at its height in 117 CE, was the most extensive political and social structure in Western civilization. By 285 CE, the empire had grown too vast to be ruled from the central government at Rome, and so was divided by Emperor Diocletian, 284-305 CE, into a Western and an Eastern empire. The legend of Rome, Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus were twin brothers. Their father was Mars, the god of war. Their mother was Rhea Silvia, a Vestal virgin and daughter of the king, Numitor. Numitor's brother Romulus had taken the throne from him and had forced Rhea Silvia to become a Vestal virgin so that she would not have any children who might try to take back the throne. When the boys were born, Romulus seized them, put them into a basket, and threw them into the river Tiber. He hoped that they would drown. However, the boys were rescued by a she-wolf who fed the babies with her own milk and cared for them. They grew up and were found by the shepherd Faustulus, who took them home and looked after them until they were grown up. The two young men discovered who they really were and decided to kill Romulus and put their grandfather back on the throne. After doing this, they decided to build a city of their own, but could not agree where to build it. Remus favored the Aventine Hill, but Romulus wanted to use the Palatine Hill. They could not reach an agreement, and so each began to build his own city enclosed with walls. One day, Remus visited Romulus and made fun of his wall by jumping over it and saying how easily it could be breached. Romulus was so annoyed that he killed Remus and said that he would kill anyone who mocked his city or tried to break through the walls of Rome. The legend says that Romulus became the first king of Rome in 753 BC and populated his new city with runaway slaves and convicted criminals. He stole women from the Sabine tribe to provide wives for the slaves and criminals and to populate his new city. The Sabine tribe were not happy about this and declared war on Rome. The war went on for many years, but eventually the Sabine tribe and Romulus reached an agreement, and the Sabines became a part of Rome under the kingship of Romulus. The legend ends by telling how Romulus was carried up to the heavens by his father, Mars, and was worshipped as the god Quirinus. When was Julius Caesar born? The exact date of Julius Caesar's birth is not known, but historians claim it to be on July 12th or 13th, 100 or 102 BC in Rome. His parents were Gaius Julius Caesar, a praetor, and Aurelia, and although he belonged to a noble family, they weren't very influential or rich during this time. His aunt, Julia, was the leader of the popular faction, Gaius Marius' wife. Julius, Caesar's youth. Caesar's father died when he was only 16, leaving him as the head of the house. Rome at the time was very unstable, struggling to manage its influence and size. Caesar was already very ambitious and decided that his family would benefit most if he would become a priest. He got himself nominated as Jupiter's high priest, but was required to not only be a patrician, but to also be married to one. This led him to break off his current engagement with a plebeian girl and to marry Cornelia, a patrician and daughter of the influential Lucius Cinna, member of the Populares. Sulla, the Roman ruler at the time, declared himself to be dictator of Rome and started to purge his enemies systematically. He targeted Caesar, who fled Rome, but his mother's family successfully convinced the ruler to lift his sentence. He was, however, no longer allowed to be a priest, and Cornelia's dowry was confiscated. With no other way to provide for his family, Caesar decided to join the army. From there, he worked himself up until he himself became dictator of Rome. How did Julius Caesar die? Julius Caesar died from being stabbed to death by a mob of conspirators in a place just next to the theater of Pompeii in 44 BC on the Roman Ides of March. At the time, Julius Caesar had been declared dictator by the Senate and had only served a year's term. He has, however, already reformed the Senate in that short period and made changes in how local governments worked. He became very popular with the lower and middle-class Romans, but many senators despised him and were concerned about him having too much power as dictator. One of his biggest mistakes was to appoint two of his former enemies, Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus, who ended up leading the plot to assassinate him. How Julius Caesar's assassination took place. Over 40 people were involved in the plot to murder Julius Caesar, or, as they called it, commit tyrannicide. They organized a gladiator game and a meeting of the Senate. During the meeting, Casca struck at Caesar with a dagger, after which Caesar acted in surprise. Casca called for help, and the whole group, Brutus included, stabbed him. He tried to get away, but was surrounded by a mob of about 60 men. He was stabbed 23 times, although only Welcome to